Want to do it, there's certainly no harm to it.
It can actually increase your risk of getting disease.
Because I'm getting some serious mixed messages.
Use a scarf if you want.
We need to at least examine the possibility.
And we're taking a dive back into the KGW vault for some historical perspective. One of the last times a pandemic brought the world to a screeching halt. Here's the story.
And welcome. Hello. Howdy. How's everybody doing? I'm Dan Haggerty. Starting things off with a doozy for you tonight. You're going to want to call it bourgeois or phonus balonus, but it's berries to me. I'm using phrases from the 20s and 30s just in case he's watching tonight. This is Oregonian William Lapshes, and today he turned 104 years old, and he just might be the oldest person in the world to survive the coronavirus. He was one of the people who caught it at a Lebanon retirement home, but now, according to his family, he's fully recovered, very perky and very excited.
We were like shocked that he was kind of sitting in his wheelchair, waving at us through the window, and we were like, he's gonna make it. But the hardest part is not being able to give him a hug, to usually do the things we usually like to do for him, bring him candy, cut his hair, little things like that.
Can we take a minute and talk about some of the things that Mr. Lapshes has lived through and survived, like Spanish flu, the Great Depression, World War II? Look, this man was born before the first commercially licensed radio broadcast, and here we are describing his remarkable survival to anyone on Earth who has an iPhone or an internet connection. I also want to address, though, a question that I've been seeing a lot, and this one comes from Gentry Roth on my Facebook wall. He asked, are people in the high-risk category recovering from this? All I hear on the news is about healthy people who recover and how bad it was, but are people like me recovering too? Now, look, clearly someone who's 104 is in the high-risk category, so the short answer is obviously yes, they're recovering. We've also reported for you a 95-year-old man in Yamhill County who survived. There have been some reports of a 101-year-old man in Spain who lived, or a 103-year-old woman who survived in China. But numbers by the CDC published recently show us that the term high risk means exactly what it sounds like. A recent study of COVID-19 deaths in the U.S. show the virus kills 10 to 27% of people over the age of 85, 3 to 11% of people 65 to 84, 1 to 3% of people 55 to 64, and less than 1% of people 20 to 54. All right, let's move on to our big story tonight, and the big story is a big math problem. How do you pay the same number of bills while working fewer hours or no hours at all? It's a math problem that a lot of Oregonians are trying to work out today because it's the first of the month, which means rent and mortgages are due, job or no job. Now, a few hours ago, Governor Brown announced this 90-day moratorium on commercial evictions. That's on top of halting residential evictions as well. And just today, Mayor Wheeler and the rest of the city council sent a letter to state and federal leaders asking for rent and mortgages to be forgiven until this crisis ends. But until that happens, it's still due today. And Pat Doris met a woman struggling, like many, many others, to pay the same exact mortgage while making half of her regular income.
Around the Portland area, more than 129,000 people rent apartments or homes, according to the site apartmentlist.com. Tens of thousands of others have mortgage payments that they owe for their homes. And in the time of COVID-19, lots of people cannot pay, including Cindy Layton Shaw.
And what does April 1st mean?
Well, April 1st is the day the house mortgage is due. I've been trying for over a month to get a hold of them to let them know that we were going to have difficulty making our mortgage payment.
Cindy lives in the Troutdale area with her husband, Ed. They've lived in their home 20 years. She's a surgical tech for an area hospital. With elective surgeries canceled to prepare for COVID-19 patients, she has seen her hours slashed and her income dropped from a high of $5,200 a month down to just $2,000 a month. Her mortgage is nearly $1,800.
I'm the main income of the home, and between worrying about how I'm going to pay the mortgage and keep our house, I'm also worried about the fact that I'm on the front lines in a hospital.
Everyone from local cities to the federal government have tried to protect homeowners and renters caught in the crushing weight of the pandemic's social distancing measures. In Portland and Multnomah County, a moratorium against evicting renters is in place. But attorney Troy Pickard, who specializes in helping renters, says it's important to take action today if you cannot pay.
The other thing that a lot of tenants are confused about is what they have to do, if anything, to trigger these protections. So I think there's a lot of tenants in Portland and Multnomah County that have heard something about this, but they think, hey, as long as I lost income due to the pandemic, I'm off the hook for paying rent. And they don't realize that they've got a deadline today to let their landlord know that they're not going to be able to make that payment.
Back in the Troutdale area, Cindy's tried time and again to tell her mortgage company she cannot pay, but she's not getting through. The COVID-19 virus seems to be stalking her, both at home and at work.
I'm worried there about the exposure, bringing it home. I can't relax at all at work. I mean, everybody's stressed out in the hospital. And you come home and then you're trying to deal with your mortgage, your bills, food. Where are we going to get the money? It's stressful, very stressful. Scary.
Okay, Pat Doris joining us now. Pat, first kind of obvious question here. What should you do if you can't get a hold of your mortgage company, if you can't get a hold of your landlord? What can you do to make sure that you're protected?
Well, the lawyers say you've got to get this in writing. So you need to send them an email, you need to send them a letter, anything like that, and keep a record of that. So keep a copy. You also need to give them documentation proving that you've lost hours or lost your job because of the social distancing and COVID-19. If you don't do that, it can be, 90 days down the road, it could be your word against theirs. That could be trouble. So you want to take this action today, and you want to document it as well.
Have the documents, have the paperwork. Great advice there, Pat. Also, clarify for people a little bit how things changed today as far as the governor's clarification on what we're dealing with here for people statewide when it comes to these evictions and it comes to mortgage companies cracking down on homeowners.
Well, it is a really big deal. The governor did have a statewide moratorium, sort of. But really all that did, according to the lawyers, was keep the sheriff from coming and dragging you off your property if you hadn't paid. But today she issued a new executive order which says you cannot be evicted, you cannot be foreclosed, they can't even take any court action against you over the next 90 days because of this COVID-19 if you don't pay. Now, if you're a jerk and you need to get evicted, that's still going to happen anyway. But if it's just because you're not making your payments, you are protected. They cannot even charge late fees. So that is a big deal. It covers renters, people who have mortgages, and also people with commercial properties. So it's a really huge attempt to try and protect people that are hurt in so many different ways in this economy.
I like the clarification for all the jerks out there. All right. Thanks, Pat. Appreciate all the info.
Now, look, as we talk about all these protections, we want to keep reminding people, unless you made some kind of deal with your landlord, you still have to pay your rent because those landlords probably still have to pay the mortgage. And if you're one of those people who have to pay a mortgage, landlord or otherwise, you might get a little bit more help. That's because Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have suspended foreclosures and evictions. They've also expanded their forbearance program. That could suspend payments for up to 1 year. About half of all mortgage holders go through a Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac company. You just have to kind of call and find out if yours is one of them. And if you have mortgage insured through the Federal Housing Administration, they have also stopped foreclosures and evictions for now as well. We have some resources for you at kgw.com. I know how heavy all of this is and how specific it is to different people, but it has some advice on there, everything from utility bills, health insurance, student loans, a bunch of other things you're probably worried about right now. So get on there. Feel free also to reach out to us specifically using that hashtag #HeyDan if there's a question that you can't find an answer to. All right, I want to take a second and answer a question now that I've been hearing a lot, not just from viewers, but from my coworkers, other journalists that I talk to as well. And there's no real easy way to answer it, but we're going to try our best. Matthew Kenny emailed the story at kgw.com and said, "Hey, Dan, when the coronavirus first hit the news, one of the messages that numerous medical experts and media outlets expressed was that masks don't do anything to protect you from the virus. So why is the lack of masks such an issue?" Now, as you know, hospitals have been begging for more masks, while medical experts have been telling us non-medical people that we really didn't need them. We've been getting this mixed message for a couple of reasons. One, Hospitals didn't want all the non-medical people to be buying up all the masks that the medical people need to do their jobs. Being a doctor and being a guy at a grocery store are two totally different things. Look, both have their risks, but only one is telling you to say, ah. That said, the conversation about who needs a mask does continue to evolve.
As long as we're absolutely certain we don't take the masks away from individuals who are healthcare providers who need them, have some sort of facial covering. It doesn't need to be a classical mask, but something that would have someone prevent them from infecting others. So this is actively being looked at.
So you probably know that face. You recognize the voice too. That's Dr. Anthony Fauci, the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease, also the president's kind of go-to medical messenger. Now, the main argument he kind of touched on there, masks actually really do the best job of preventing us from spreading the virus through coughing and sneezing, whatever. So if you are sick, definitely wear a mask. Now, if you're one of those people who wants to wear a mask no matter what, well, I'm certain you never expected to hear this from the U.S. Surgeon General.
Wearing a mask improperly can actually increase your risk of getting disease. It can also give you a false sense of security.
Okay, so bottom line, nurses and doctors come face to face with sick people every day, so they need all the protective gear that they can get. But for most of us living our socially distant lives, masks won't make much of a difference.
An Amazon worker in Hillsborough has tested positive for coronavirus. So I guess we got to stop ordering stuff online. Just like we stopped getting the mail and calling the fire department and going to the doctor. Am I laying the sarcasm on thick enough? And it certainly feels like what we're going through is unprecedented. But we found a reminder in the KGW vault that history has a way of repeating itself. And in other news, not everything we talk about is coronavirus related. When the story continues.
Time to answer a viewer question. So this person wants to know, hey Dan, I've heard and read that people with type O blood seem to be able to ward off the virus, or at least keep symptoms to a minimum. Do you have any information on this? Okay, so this information came out of a study in Wuhan. The researchers concluded that blood group A had a significantly higher risk for COVID-19 compared with non-A blood groups, and blood group O had a significantly lower risk for the infectious disease. But at the end of the day, researchers say we need more research on this and a larger group to study before we can say that that is a fact. Please keep sending in those questions using the hashtag HeyDan. We do our very best to answer them.
All right, thank you, Kristen, as always. By the way, a lot of you email us, or you contact us in other non-Twitter-ish ways, and you tell us, look, I don't know what a hashtag is, I don't use social media. That's fine. We're not trying to exclude anyone. We accept all kinds of messages, snail mail, emails, candygrams, whatever you got. So when I go on and on about hashtag Hey Dan, that's just shorthand for get in touch with us however you can. All right, let's move on to our next story now, which you might have actually seen on some earlier KGW broadcasts, and it might have made you a little nervous about ordering on Amazon. We learned Amazon announced 2 employees at its Hillsborough warehouse that they had a confirmed positive coronavirus test. Right now, Amazon is trying to find out who that employee has come in contact with, but they haven't said where that person was working. Now, I understand it's kind of scary to learn that the company that drops off packages, handled by many different pairs of hands, is now linked to a deadly virus, especially when studies do show it can live for up to 24 hours on cardboard. But before you go and stop ordering from Amazon, I thought it might be worth putting this case into a little bit more perspective. Now look, I went back through our own reporting and found this. A week ago, 2 Oregon post office workers tested positive for COVID-19. Early last month, 2 firefighters in Clark County were exposed to the virus and were quarantined for a week. And literally just yesterday, we learned that 18 people at Legacy Health and Providence tested positive. So as long as we're going to stop ordering from Amazon, by that logic, we should stop getting our mail, stop calling the fire department, or going to the doctor. Look, I'm not being flippant here. I'm being realistic. This virus is here. And by here, I mean it's everywhere. You shouldn't need a report about a sick delivery driver to start thinking about packages. You need to think about this virus anytime somebody comes into your little bubble. And, for what it's worth, the World Health Organization does say that the risk of catching a virus from a package that has been moved through different conditions and temperatures is actually pretty low. But look, when in doubt, wash your hands, or, just always wash your hands. All right, let's dig into the KGW vault. Now, this isn't the first time that Oregon has dealt with a big outbreak. The Spanish flu, for instance, hit in our area pretty hard in 1918. And we found some really interesting newspaper clippings from that time from the University of Oregon's archives. Here's one of the morning edition of the Oregonian dated October 12th, 1918. You see the headline there, All Portland Bows to Will of Nation. This was the day after Mayor George Baker ordered the city's schools and theaters and dance halls and churches all closed and banned gatherings. But a local historian told me that this came after a lot of other cities had already put quarantines in place.
He didn't really want to shut Portland down, and he was told to by the U.S. Surgeon General and public health officials. He was told, no, you need to close this place up. And he said, what about the economic impact that's going to have on this city?
Look, it wasn't just Portland. Check out this clip from the Beaverton Times from about a week later saying Beaverton is closed because of influenza. I also like the other headline on the page. It says even Spanish influenza cannot stop local politics. And that's true even today with coronavirus because we are still in a big election year. Hey, let's go to Eastern Oregon now. This is from the Ontario Argus on the Oregon-Idaho border. It says former Ontarian is Spanish flu victim. Again, we're doing the same kind of reporting today, telling victim stories. Here's one on the kind of lighter side of things from the East Oregonian in November 1918. It's a cartoon called Doings of the Duffs. It shows a small child pulling pepper off the table and the whole family starts sneezing. The dad calls the doctor and says they've all got the Spanish flu. Yeah, try sneezing in public nowadays and check out some of the looks you get. Hey, if you have an idea for us for the vault, virus related or not, let us know. Reach out. Use the hashtag HeyDan. All right, let's take a little break from all the coronavirus coverage for just a minute. Catch you up on some of the other headlines you might have missed in a segment we call In Other News.
In other news, Portland police are trying to figure out who shot and killed a pawn shop manager outside of his store. Police responded to a shooting Monday in the parking lot of USA Pawn and Jewelry Shop on Southeast Powell. Benjamin Johnson was found dead. A family member told the Oregonian that someone was trying to steal from the store. Crime Stoppers is offering a $2,500 reward for information that leads to the arrest of the shooter. Someone broke into the Trader Joe's in Southeast Portland overnight and tried to get away with a safe. Police say they dragged the safe into the parking lot of the store on Cesar Chavez Boulevard, but they couldn't open it and left before officers arrived. A rare tornado touched down in eastern Washington yesterday afternoon. It happened near the Tri-Cities. The National Weather Service in Pendleton says it was small and didn't last very long. There's no reports of any injuries or damage. The tornado hit just a few hours before a large earthquake in Idaho shook parts of eastern Washington and eastern Oregon. An anonymous donor just paid off the lunch debt of almost every student in Battleground Public Schools. The $40,000 gift covers the debt of nearly 1,900 students in the district. But it doesn't cover the debts sent to collections, which happens twice a year if students owe more than $100. School lunch debt is a big problem in our area. As of January, the Vancouver School District was more than $144,000 in debt. Evergreen was $129,000 in debt. Hillsborough nearly $150,000, and Salem-Kaiser more than $445,000 in debt, almost $500,000. And that's in other news.
And I'm Matt Safino. Today we are turning the weather story into the science story, as we so often like to do here at 6 o'clock. And you know what? I've been thinking a lot about how a lot of people are cooped up at home, trying to teach their kids from home, and there are some really great resources, and one of them is counting penguins, right? And you don't even have to go to Antarctica to do it. But this is video, time-lapse video from a group called Penguin Zoo, and they do something, I mean, look at that. How fun is that? So you may wonder, it looks like a difficult job counting penguins, right? Well, like I said, you don't have to go there. You can do this using satellite imagery. Check out this image. This is from NASA of some islands down off the coast of Antarctica. Now, you see their names there, Beagle Island, Darwin Island, of course, named after Darwin and his expedition, and I believe the Beagle was his ship. So how does this work? Well, I'm going to zoom in on this for you, and what you see are some brown streaks on the otherwise yellow-colored islands. Those are guano paths, guano being another word for penguin poop. So scientists actually use the streaks of poop on the islands to track not only where the penguins are, they can get really good estimates as to how many penguins are there. It's otherwise very difficult work to do because it's hard to get there and the penguins move around, and very little is known about the charismatic creatures that we all love, penguins. So how does this relate to being cooped up because of the coronavirus? Well, you can participate in this and count. We need to go back to the graphics here because I got some information for you. You can count penguins using satellite imagery using this program called Penguin Watch. So you can email them at schools@penguinwatch.org. They're on Facebook at Penguin Zoo and also on Instagram and Twitter. So again, using satellite imagery to count penguins in Antarctica while you're cooped up at home teaching your kids because of the coronavirus. Dan, back to you.
I love that. Hashtag Hey Dan, hashtag streaks of poop. Appreciate it, Matt. Very good stuff. That's fun. All right. Hey, I know we have a ton of stuff going on right now, a lot to deal with, but there is something really important that we think you should take a minute to do. And by a minute, I mean that literally. It takes about a minute. Today is Census Day, and it's probably easier to fill this stuff out than it ever has been before. You can do it online, you can do it on your phone, you can do it by mail. You should have gotten something in the mail already to walk you through all of that. I probably don't need to tell you, though, how important this is. Look, the results determine how much Oregon gets in federal funding, which could be billions of dollars. And Oregon is expected to get a new seat in Congress, and that could really shake things up in the political world. So this is a really, really big deal this decade, right, for us to do this. So if you haven't filled it out yet, or if you haven't done the census, we got a link for you, kgw.com. Check it out. Hey, when we come back after the break, we're going to read some comments. We're also going to read something that Damian Lillard had to say about parenting in the time of coronavirus. And frankly, it's just really nice to finally be able to relate to a superstar NBA millionaire. All right, we'll be back after this.
All right, Ed wants to know, hey Dan, if all of us are staying home, where are all the new confirmed cases coming from? Thanks again, Ed, for that question. So here's the thing. We are still in a catch-up phase of testing. It's estimated that there are 10 infected people for every 1 case we find with testing. Also, not all of us are staying home. And with the incubation period of 2 to 10 days, people who are sequestered today might have been exposed a week ago before isolating. Please keep sending in their questions. We learned so much by trying to answer them, and you really are helping a lot of people. The more questions you send in, just use that hashtag #HeyDan. All right, here's a Hey Dan question that a lot of parents want to know the answer to. So this person says, we absolutely love our daycare. However, we have a question. If they have to shut their doors, what can they legally charge us to hold our place when they reopen? It would make sense we'd be charged something, but it couldn't possibly be the full price, could it? Thoughts? That's from Jerry. Thanks, Jerry, for that question. That's a great one. All right, so we reached out to the Oregon Department of Education, and it really depends on the agreement or contract you have with your child care provider. So dig that out, look it up online, and reread that. The Office of Child Care does not regulate this area. They do ask, though, that child care providers use discretion with their billing policies and practices so they don't hurt families who may be under financial stress during this current situation. If you're in that situation, let us know. We'd love to hear about it. Just use the hashtag HeyDan. Keep sending in those questions. We learned so much, and we really enjoy just helping you a little bit by being able to answer, some of your questions.
All right, thank you to Kristen. Hey, look, part of the reason that this crazy moment in history feels so crazy is because it has completely uprooted so many things that we take for granted, like shopping or going out to eat or, I don't know, even leaving the home in general. But even home doesn't quite feel the same because one of our favorite pastimes is on pause, and that's sports. Look, we don't have basketball, we don't have baseball to entertain us while we're stuck inside. I don't know or even want to think about what's going to happen with football. Look, with that in mind, I wanted to share something that the Blazers put on Instagram. It's a picture of Dame and baby Dame, and it has a quote from Daddy Dame saying, even when we were in season, I spent a lot of time with my son, but there's just something different about waking up, and he's full of energy, and he's running around and bouncing off the walls, and it's 7 a.m., and then he wants to eat. I feel like I work for him. It's constant work. I love this. And it brings us to our quote of the day, the rest of what he had to say. So for all of the parents who do this on the regular, I have the most respect in the world for you guys because this is a full-time job. Dame, I love it. Thank you. Hey, got a bunch of comments. Can only get to one. This is coming from Darwood on Twitter. With all the homeschooling going on these days, prom night's going to be really awkward. Yeah, you know what? I've been hearing a lot from parents and teachers bummed out for those seniors. So if anybody has any ideas that we can do to try and pick them up, let them know we're thinking about them, maybe make prom night fun, I'd love to hear them. Use the hashtag HeyDan or just to say hi. Hey, that's the story for tonight. We'll talk to you tomorrow.